an overview of what we've got left. I'm going to mark this up as a parts engine. The rod cap bolts, one of them is really good. One of them is it's bent. No, the main bearing, rod bearing, it just fell apart. It was no good. As was the case with the crank bearings, just rusted, and whatever they do, they done. Let's set that aside. The caps they're good, got a good thread. We can save them. Just rusted really bad. That can be set right. The bolts for those, they were the tightest that I have encountered. Even the pipe for the breather in the back, and I think the breather was missing on this engine. I think that was one of the few parts that was missing, but it was in there to. I had to get a bar to put on the pipe rings to get it out. And the head studs are good, reusable. Rod cap is good, as is the side cover bolts. And there was a full set of 8 of these heavy 3/8 nuts. The flat on the back, these are original, and I will keep these and use this set on an engine because they are original nuts, heavy pattern, flat on the back. That's what they used back in the day. Full set of them. The head bolts, 1/2 inch, same story, flat on the back, original. And right here is the reason, that right there is the reason you don't reuse lock washers. And you know, you can get these down there at the store unplated, but we'll scrap them. And it was a full set of those thin washers on the side covers. All engines had them, and it surprised me that this cover to fit on that eccentric was it shows very little wire around the edge, and the screws just screwed right out, kinda easy. And that is loose on this, but the camshaft and the gear is rusted tight in that housing, and it just rusted really bad on the back side. What I'll do is I'll press this gear out, and I'm gonna go ahead and just, for the simple reason that I got some better parts, and I actually needed the fuel pump off of this engine, so I'm going to go ahead and clean these up and put these in the parts bin and assemble another engine. But I am going to keep this set of flywheels and block and side covers together because they got so much original paint on them. So I'm going to try to clean them and save that. And if you remember, this is a homemade. It's welded onto that eccentric thing right there, and it don't have no pin in it. So I will disassemble all of this right here and put I got one over there that's equally as much paint on it as this has. So I will replace that with one that matches up. But that's a good part there. And the crankshaft was the deciding factor on this engine. But next, these shims, you know, they'll be, once they're cleaned up, there'll be a half a dozen of them that's usable. But even the shims are rusted half away. Oh, it's rusted. I've not seen rust like that for a while. And you never know. But the crankshaft itself, you can see how bad it was rusted, especially where the babbitt bearings was at. And the gear on the crank is rusted beyond use. You know, the teeth are just gone. So we really didn't lose much by just sawing that off. Actually, we gained a little bit. Scrap metal. And this side cover. And it's another example. I mean, we've talked about this before, and I kind of hate to keep going back to the same thing, but it's kind of important for a new guy. Where that is, this pin, this guide pin right here, it's supposed to be straight. It's pressed in this housing, and it does not supposed to have that gap wore in it right there. And that gap wore in this, when them two went together, that gap wore in there. Well, that's the governor. Okay, once that governor collar got caught in that gap, then it didn't govern no more. It ran at that same speed all the time because it couldn't go back in and forth like this right here. The springs was hanging on it. In a rotation like this, it was holding it in that direction. There's a couple things that causes that. You know, if it's not oiled enough, if it has drag on it, and it's putting some excessive pressure on that, you know, the kind of conditions you run the engine in. But anyway, that'll be set right. It's a good one, no cracks or breaks. A little rust on the back, we'll get that going. And all of this governor mechanism is good. All I like is pressing this flywheel, this crankshaft out of that flywheel. Okay, and I left that one in there for a show and tell because I pressed this one out. This is what I pressed out of there, the end of the crankshaft, and this collar was on here. And actually the collar was seized on there. You can see where it was just rusted completely all around with deep heavy rust. Also in here, the collar was rusted really, really bad onto that. The gib key, once I pressed it ever such a little bit in the direction going that away. The way that works is when that goes in there, the taper on it tightens it up. Okay, if you can make the flywheel go that way, then you loosen up the gib key. That's all it was required to get this out. Just put it in the press and just ever such a little bit, it came right out. And that's about all of it. I'm going to end this engine right here with this video. And these, like I say, these flywheels will be kept with that engine because they got original paint here and there on them. The patina matches up. And the engine, if I may just describe it to you as we talk, the engine itself is with the piston stuck in the cylinder where it's at, like 3 inches up from the back, and that's where all of this rust was at. Then I'm going to take the